We sincerely believe we are the pinnacle of evolution. We build neural networks, launch rockets, and arrogantly believe we control everything. But behind this pathos lies a funny weakness. We are absolutely blind to what is right under our noses. Our routine is just a comfortable hallucination. The things you hold in your hands daily hide their true meaning, and your own body shamelessly lies to you. We flounder in a matrix of stereotypes, not noticing the total absurdity around us. It is time to shake the dust off your eyes and look into the system errors of our daily life. Have you ever wondered that a harmless pineapple literally digests you back, that you physically never touched anything, and the fresh smell of cut grass is a chemical cry for help? Your picture of the world will burst at the seams when you learn that the brain photoshops reality every second. You see everything upside down, and random holes in objects save lives. You will never look at your apartment with the same eyes again. Illusions aside, let's go. Number 1. The portion dictator. Imagine a classic kitchen evening. Water in the pot is already boiling, and we stand over it with an armful of dry spaghetti, desperately trying to determine the ideal portion by eye so as not to cook pasta for an entire Italian village. At this moment, we usually take a special plastic spoon with teeth and a strange round hole in the middle, sincerely believing that this technological opening was created exclusively for draining excess boiling water. What a naive error in assessing functionality. In fact, engineers built a rigid hardware limiter into this household item, a kind of physical DRM control of your carbohydrate traffic. The diameter of this hole is calibrated to the millimeter to hold exactly one standard portion of dry pasta for one average person. This is not just kitchen utensils. This is a strict diet administrator who does not allow us to violate consumption protocols. Apparently, the creators of this tool knew about our tendency to overeat and sewed a protective algorithm right into the plastic. Number 2. The sweet cannibal. When we slice a juicy tropical pineapple and send the first piece into our mouth, we expect only gastronomic pleasure, ignoring that very slight, barely noticeable tingling on the tongue. We naively write this off as exotic acidity or allergies, unsuspecting that right now, a real chemical battle for survival is unfolding in our mouth. The secret lies in bromelain, an aggressive plant enzyme whose sole task is the ruthless breakdown of complex proteins. The mechanics of the process here are as follows. While we joyfully chew the pulp of the fruit, its juice literally begins to digest our mucous membrane, dissolving the tissues of the tongue and cheeks. This is not just dinner. This is a classic case of friendly fire in a biological simulation. We try to eat the pineapple, and the pineapple turns on its built-in acid antivirus and eats us back. The karmic balance of the food chain is observed with frightening irony. The survivor is the one who chews faster. Number 3. Electromagnetic paranoia. From early childhood, we were taught to believe in the concept of physical contact. We hug loved ones. We pet pets. We knock with a fist on a wooden table, feeling the hardness of matter. It sounds like the ravings of a madman, but at the quantum level, no human in the history of mankind has ever touched anything. It turns out that the atoms that make up our fingers and the atoms of the table surface are surrounded by dense clouds of electrons carrying a negative charge. According to the laws of basic physics, identical charges aggressively repel, creating a microscopic but insurmountable buffer zone between any objects in the universe. What we perceive as touch or pressure is just an illusion, a bug of the feedback system, when our brain interprets the force of electromagnetic resistance as hardness. We are all in fact eternally levitating a fraction of a nanometer above the ground, stuck in an endless hitbox collision error. The physical world is just a set of invisible force fields where no one is allowed to get too close. Number 4. Personal Photoshop. It seems to us that we see the world objectively, like a high-quality panoramic camera broadcasting a picture without a single distortion. Look around the room, everything is clear, the boundaries are clear, no extra objects. And now think about the fact that right in the middle of your face sticks a fairly large piece of flesh, which physically cannot help but fall into the field of view of two eyes. Why does it not loom before us 24 hours a day? The answer lies in the extreme optimization of the resources of our internal processor, the neural network of the brain, assessing the constant presence of the nose in the frame as useless static noise, simply wrote a real-time script that cuts this object out of the visual render. Our visual cortex works like an aggressive compression algorithm, removing extra textures to save RAM for more important tasks. We literally live with a constant augmented reality filter that hides our own spare parts from us so that we do not go crazy from visual garbage. Number 5. Acoustics of boiling water. We are used to trusting our vision entirely, delegating a supporting role to the other senses. However, the sound engine of our reality hides incredible settings. Conduct a thought experiment. Blindfold your eyes and ask someone to pour ice water from the refrigerator into a glass, and then boiling water from the kettle. Your hearing aid will instantly fix the difference. Cold water sounds hollow, heavy, and viscous, like thick syrup, while hot water emits a ringing, light, and high overflow. The solution lies in the change in molecular density. Temperature physically changes the viscosity of the liquid, forcing molecules to move faster and reducing internal friction. The universe literally applies different audio codecs and equalizer settings depending on the temperature variable of the object. This is a built-in acoustic ping, allowing a blind user to determine the status of a resource without the risk of getting burned. The developers prescribe the sound of temperature so elegantly that we do not even notice this genius function. Number 6. Paper teleport. Mathematics in school always seemed to us a set of boring and safe rules that reliably keep the world within the framework of logic. Take an ordinary thin sheet of office paper, the thickness of which barely exceeds 1/10 of a millimeter. At first glance, this is an absolutely harmless artifact, but as soon as we launch a cycle of geometric progression and begin to fold this sheet in half, the reality engine begins to choke from overload. After just 42 such folds, the thickness of the resulting paper stack will cross the border of the stratosphere, break through the cosmic vacuum, and rest directly against the surface of the moon. This incredible scale failure shows how human perception is not adapted to the awareness of exponential growth. We think in linear categories, while the mathematical code of the universe is able to turn a pathetic scrap of cellulose into an interplanetary bridge with the help of banal multiplication by 2. It is a pity that the strength of paper textures does not allow realizing this bug in practice. Number 7. Forest Galaxy. When we look into the clear night sky, strewn with twinkling dots, we are covered by existential trembling before the infinity of space and the greatness of the Milky Way. It seems to us that the Earth is a tiny, insignificant grain of sand, devoid of scale compared to the stellar ocean. However, system statistics give out completely different numbers, breaking our idea of the distribution of resources. Astronomers have calculated that about 300 billion stars burn in our native galaxy. At the same time, ecologists conducted a global inventory and found out that about 3 trillion trees grow on our planet alone. The difference is a whole order of magnitude. It turns out that the local Earth server is overloaded with botanical polygons so much that the number of trunks and crowns is many times greater than the number of luminaries in the space skybox surrounding us. The creators of the simulation clearly decided to save on drawing distant star systems, throwing all available computing power into generating forest textures right under our feet. Number 8. Perfume from a puddle. Perhaps there is no more poetic and romanticized aroma than the smell of fresh summer rain beating on dry earth. Writers dedicate poems to it, perfumers try to synthesize it in glass bottles, and we greedily inhale this air, calling it the clean breath of nature. In fact, this famous petrichor has nothing to do with the freshness of water or the heavens. This is geosmin, a complex organic compound that microscopic soil bacteria Actinomycetes release in panic when rain drops physically begin to bombard their colonies. What we consider the aroma of romance in the microworld is a large-scale chemical siren, a mass notification of flooding and the death of entire microbial cities. We enjoy inhaling the smell of biological stress of lower beings. This is the highest level of black humor of the biosphere. Tragedy at the level of microbes turns into an elite air freshener for higher primates. Number 9. Chronological shift. Studying history in school, we are used to sorting epochs into neat, isolated boxes. Here we have the harsh European Middle Ages with knights and castles, and there, somewhere in mythical antiquity, mysterious Indians of South America wander in feathers and gold. But as soon as you synchronize the server logs, the timeline gives a critical error. The famous Oxford University began giving lectures to students in the year 1096, turning into a center of academic science. And the great capital of the Aztec Empire, the city of Tenochtitlan, was founded on swamps only in the year 1325. This means that European scientists had already been taking exams in theology and geometry for more than 2 centuries by the moment the first Aztec leader only guessed to stick a stick into the ground to build his first temple. The writers of global history clearly forgot to release a timely patch for both hemispheres, allowing 2 completely different levels of the technological tree to exist at the same time. Number 10. Secret Navigator. Every motorist has at least once in his life faced a panic attack, driving up to a gas station in a rented or strange car. You frantically look in the mirrors, trying to guess which side the gas tank hatch is on, risking making a shameful maneuver with pulling the hose through the entire body. But user interface engineers solved this problem long ago, leaving us an elegant Easter egg right on the dashboard. If you look closely at the fuel level indicator, then next to the tiny icon of the gas pump, you will discover a tiny arrow pointing either to the left or to the right. This is not a random element of decor. It is a hard-coded navigation marker that always unmistakably indicates the location of the cherished hatch. Car developers introduced this hint, realizing that the driver's RAM is too busy with the road to store such small variables. It is amazing how long we can ignore the instruction written in capital letters on the main screen. Number 11. The slow Aquaman. In the world of biology, we are used to distributing metals for endurance according to obvious logic. If an animal lives in water, it must be a champion in holding its breath. Dolphins, graceful kings of the ocean, are able to dive and do without oxygen for about 10 minutes, which seems to us an impressive result for a mammal. And now shift your gaze to the rainforest, where a sloth hangs on a branch, a creature that evolution seemed to create as a joke. So this moss-covered sleeper is able to hold its breath for an incredible 40 minutes. The mechanics of this cheat are simple to the point of genius. Getting into the water, the sloth forcibly reduces its heart rate to a minimum, transferring the entire organism into extreme energy-saving mode. While the dolphin spends oxygen on active rendering of movements and echolocation, the sloth simply pauses its background processes, demonstrating that sometimes the best solution to a problem is absolute inaction. It seems that at this moment, logic has already begun to pack its things to finally leave the chat, but we are only warming up because truly deep bugs of reality await us ahead. Number 12. Drainage well. Look at an ordinary heavy padlock that hangs on the doors of garages and sheds. On its lower end, next to the keyhole, a microscopic hole is always drilled. We tend to think that this is a casting defect or secret access for burglars. In fact, this is a brilliant day one patch from the creators of hardware. This tiny hole works as a passive cooling and drainage system. It allows rainwater to flow freely out of the mechanism, preventing fatal oxidation of internal textures. Moreover, advanced users use this port to pour technical oil to lubricate stuck gears without complete disassembly of the device. Engineering thought often hides the most important solutions in the most inconspicuous pixels of our environment, saving us from a rusty apocalypse. Number 13. Acid respawn. The human body is the crown of evolutionary thought, but its internal algorithms raise serious questions for the quality control department. The human stomach produces hydrochloric acid so aggressive that it is capable of dissolving metal fragments and breaking down complex chemical compounds. A logical question arises: why does this reservoir of death not digest itself, leaving us with a hole in the belly? It turns out that the biosystem did not find a better solution than to launch an endless cycle of updating textures. Every 3 to 4 days, your body urgently grows a completely new mucous membrane of the stomach, replacing damaged layers. It is like a server regularly deleting temporary files and rolling out a fresh system backup to prevent a critical kernel failure. If this timer goes astray even once, the acid antivirus immediately attacks its own motherboard, proving that we live thanks to a very fragile temporary crutch. Number 14. Gravitational trap. For decades, women around the world have been using metal bobby pins for hairstyling, confidently sliding them with the flat side to the scalp, leaving the wavy part on top for beauty. We accepted this standard of use as an immutable truth. However, the original drawing of this device implies a completely different coupling mechanics. The wavy side is obliged to look down, adhering directly to the hair roots. It was these geometric curves that were designed to create maximum physical grip, blocking slipping like a winter tire tread. Placing the bobby pin the other way around, we violate the intended logic of the physics engine, disabling the gravitational lock function for the sake of dubious aesthetics. It is amazing how the whole of humanity can get a perfectly working tool in their hands and massively start using it upside down, and then complain about poor fixation. Number 15. Emergency valve. A flight on a passenger liner at an altitude of 10 kilometers is in itself a triumph of victory over gravity, but the details of this process are frightening. You sit by the porthole, enjoy the views of the clouds, and suddenly notice a tiny hole right in the plastic of the window. An alarm signal instantly flashes in the brain. A hole in a hermetic hull must mean inevitable depressurization and catastrophe. But do not panic, because this defect is not a texture error, but a critically important breathing valve. The window consists of several layers of strong glass, and due to the colossal pressure difference inside the warm cabin and outside in the icy vacuum, the inner glass could simply explode from tension. This microscopic well filigree bleeds excess pressure into the interglass space, working as a safety patch against system collapse. Aircraft architects intentionally punched a hole in your protection so that this protection would not kill you with its own strength. Number 16. Botanical imposter. From our school days, we were instilled with a clear classification of the gifts of nature, arranging fruits and berries on understandable gastronomic shelves. We are sure that raspberries and strawberries are reference berries, and a banana is a solid, independent fruit. However, if we look into the source code of the botanical database, we will find total chaos in the tag system. According to strict scientific parameters, a berry must form from one flower ovary and have seeds inside the pulp. According to this protocol, a strawberry is a false fruit, a complex overgrown receptacle, but bananas, giant watermelons, and hairy kiwis receive the status of real, full-fledged berries. Someone in the flora classification department clearly confused the identifiers at the release, scattering the properties of objects in a random order. We have been living in a gastronomic matrix for centuries, calling giant yellow boomerangs berries and true berries a culinary illusion. Number 17. Lawn scream. Saturday morning in the suburbs is traditionally accompanied by the hum of lawnmowers and a thick Swedish aroma of freshly cut grass, which we associate with cleanliness, comfort, and the beginning of the weekend. But let's take off the rose-colored glasses and look at this process through the eyes of the plant world. That very soothing aroma of freshness in reality is an emergency chemical distress signal, a silent scream of horror that blades of grass release into the atmosphere at the moment of dismemberment by a steel blade. These volatile organic compounds are designed to warn neighboring plants about the beginning of a mass massacre and, in theory, attract predatory insects to destroy the threat. What we use as a relaxing flavor for our picnics is actually a cruel area of effect debuff, a zone of destruction of an invisible botanical war. We literally enjoy the smell of mass panic of lower NPCs on our site. Number 18. Nasal shift. The process of breathing seems to us the most automatic and symmetrical action in life. We take a breath, and both air channels work synchronously, like two nozzles of an ideal engine. But if you listen to your feelings right now, you will notice a system anomaly. One of your nostrils passes through itself about 80% of the entire airflow, while the second is in sleep mode, resting and restoring the moisture of the mucous membrane. Every few hours, the central server of your brain quietly switches routing, changing the active channel. This load balancing algorithm is vital so that thin olfactory receptors do not dry out and burn out from constant friction of air masses. Our body uses advanced mechanics of alternating switching on of servers to maintain the system in working condition without stopping for repairs. An ideal biological shift of schedules. Number 19. Soft bumper. In winter, millions of people appear on the streets of cities in warm hats with funny fluffy pom-poms on the tops of their heads. We are used to perceiving this element exclusively as a cute decorative detail, creating a cozy, slightly childish image. It never occurs to us that this ball of threads has a harsh military origin and was introduced into operation as a purely utilitarian tool. Initially, such structures were designed for French military sailors who had to move for days in cramped, low holds of warships. In conditions of constant pitching, the pom-poms served as a soft physical buffer, the first line of defense, mitigating painful collisions of the skull with iron ceilings and bulkheads. This is a classic example of how programmers added an additional hitbox to the character's equipment to protect against damage, and users centuries later turned this rescue bumper into a fashionable accessory. Number 20. Blue Destroyer. Each of us in our school years carried a two-tone eraser in a pencil case, a red, blue, or white blue piece of rubber possessing a magical reputation. The urban legend passed from mouth to mouth at recesses stated that the blue harder part is intended for the traceless removal of ink from a ballpoint pen. We all tried to do this, and the finale was always the same: a hole in the notebook and bitter disappointment. It turns out that manufacturers never endowed this tool with the magic of fighting ink. The blue part was created to erase ordinary graphite pencil, but exclusively on very dense, rough, or cardboard paper, where the soft red eraser simply crumbled and left dirty streaks. Trying to erase a pen in a thin notebook, we used a high-level industrial tool on a low-poly, fragile texture, which expectedly led to the destruction of the level itself. The global school myth turned out to be banal ignorance of the hardware. Number 21. Emerald Matrix. Approach the mirror in the bathroom. We look into this smooth surface every day, checking our appearance, and are absolutely sure that we see an exact colorless reflection of reality. Physics claims that an ideal optical mirror should be absolutely white, evenly returning the entire spectrum of light. But the real world is far from ideal formulas. Real mirrors are made of quartz glass, which has a tiny bug in its spectral code. It absorbs part of the light, reflecting mainly the green wavelength. If you do not believe it, place two mirrors exactly opposite each other. In the resulting infinite tunnel, you will see how with each new reflection, the picture becomes darker and distinctly green. This rendering bug proves that the basic background texture of our visual world has a greenish tint, like an old screen of an antediluvian monitor that they never managed to calibrate to the end. Number 22. Runic Connect. Every day we click on the blue icon with an angular white symbol on smartphones and laptops to connect headphones or transfer files. We perceive this logo as an abstract technological design, the fruit of the imagination of modern corporate marketers. In reality, we regularly activate an ancient Scandinavian script that is more than 1,000 years old. The name of the technology refers to the Viking king Harald Bluetooth, who in the 10th century became famous for peacefully uniting scattered Danish tribes into a single network. The logo is not random lines, but a direct superimposition of two ancient runes denoting the initials of the king. The developers of the wireless protocol decided that their technology unites devices just as the ancient monarch united people. We use a magical runic seal of the Viking era as a quick access icon for our gadgets. Historical copy-paste in all its glory. At this stage, we are plunging into such wilds where the creators of reality apparently went for a long lunch, entrusting the details of life to an inexperienced intern. Number 23. Cowboy Slot. You put on your favorite classic jeans and mechanically grope inside the right pocket for another one, a tiny cramped rectangle of fabric into which it is impossible to shove either a modern phone, keys, or even a decent handful of coins. Most people consider this a design error or a place to store a lucky button. The truth is that this pocket is a relic code left from early assemblies of the 19th century. It was designed by Levi Strauss specifically for cowboys and gold diggers so that they could safely store fragile pocket watches on a chain. Time has passed, wrist chronometers have replaced pocket analogs, but the factory conveyor has never received script updates. As a result, we all carry an outdated inventory slot that lost its functionality more than 100 years ago, but continues to be stubbornly resewn in new versions of trousers. Number 24. Graveyard of Clones. General cleaning of the apartment inevitably leads us to a collision with the main enemy of aesthetics: gray, fluffy dust swirling under the bed and in dark corners. It seems to us that this is dirt from the street, sand brought by the wind, or microscopic garbage from clothes. Prepare for a blow to self-esteem. This dust is mostly you. About 70% of household dust consists of dead, dried cells of our own skin. The mechanics of the human body are such that it constantly sheds old polygons, updating the external texture. We literally molt, leaving behind an invisible trail of biological garbage. These fluffy lumps under the sofa are a cemetery of your former avatars, microscopic clones that you lost in the process of exploiting the spacesuit. Vacuuming turns from fighting dirt into a procedure for emergency evacuation of your own dead pixels. Number 25. Blind pilot. Typing text on the keyboard of a laptop or desktop computer, we rarely pay attention to tactile sensations, trusting muscle memory. But if you run your index fingers over the keys F and J, you will feel tiny plastic protrusions or dashes on their surface. We are used to ignoring this production defect, however, this is not a casting error. These protrusions are critically important physical anchors of the user interface. They were invented so that your index fingers could blindly find the basic starting position on the keyboard without requiring visual confirmation from the eyes. This is a built-in auto-aim for your hands, allowing you to type text in absolute darkness, focusing only on the tactile response of the controller. Engineers added these bumps to free our visual sensors for reading text on the monitor, a small hardware detail that makes a cybernetic ninja out of an ordinary user. Number 26. Planetary break. The rotation of planets around their axis and their flight around the sun seems to us an unshakable, harmonious dance, where days are always shorter than years. This logic works flawlessly on Earth, but if we turn our gaze to our neighbor Venus, we will find a monstrous failure in planetary animation there. Venus rotates around its own axis so lazily and slowly that it manages to make a full revolution around the sun faster than one local day passes on it. In other words, a year on Venus is shorter than its day. This is absolute absurdity from the point of view of earthly logic, as if the simulation developer accidentally mixed up the variables of rotation speed and orbital motion in the physics engine settings. While the sun slowly crawls from dawn to sunset on this planet, it manages to celebrate the new year, global server lag turning the calendar into a meaningless set of numbers. Number 27. Heel lock. Buying expensive running sneakers, we often notice strange additional holes for lacing at the very collar of the shoe, which seem completely useless because there is usually not enough length to pull the laces there, and it looks ridiculous. We ignore this level design element, considering it a whim of stylists. In reality, these holes activate a hidden mechanic for advanced users. By threading the laces through them in a special way, you create a so-called heel lock, a rigid loop that tightly fixes the joint, preventing the slightest friction of the foot inside the boot. This protects against calluses and injuries under extreme loads. Sports equipment developers sewed a powerful upgrade into the basic equipment to increase characteristics, but forgot to put instructions for its activation in the box, leaving us to suffer from rubbed feet simply because of ignorance of the hidden capabilities of our own inventory. Number 28. Lonely Builder. A retractable construction tape measure is an attribute of every home master. If you examine its metal tip, with which the tape clings to the edge of the board, you will see a small longitudinal hole in it. Most people are sure that this is done for the sake of saving metal or aerodynamics. In fact, this is an ideal tool for cooperative mode, adapted for solo play. This hole is designed to securely hook the tape measure to the head of a driven nail or screwed screw. This simple hardware hook replaces your second pair of hands, allowing you to pull the measuring tape a huge distance without fear that it will break loose and whip you on the fingers. A brilliant physical crutch compensating for the lack of units on the construction site and proving that good engineering solves the problems of social isolation. Number 29. Alcohol shock absorber. Opening a bottle of good wine or champagne for a festive dinner, we always notice a deep dent at the bottom of the glass vessel. Rumors circulate among the people that this is a sign of the elitism of the drink, or a special recess for the sommelier's thumb to beautifully pour wine into glasses. Forget these aesthetic tales. This dent bears the harsh technical name punt and plays the role of a critical shock absorber in the physical pressure engine. In the process of fermentation or aggressive corking of the cork inside the bottle, colossal pneumatic tension is created. If the bottom were flat, the glass would simply tear into fragments, turning the holiday into a bloodbath. The punt evenly distributes kinetic energy along the walls, ensuring that upon overload, the cork flies out, and not the vessel itself explodes. This is a built-in safety protocol saving our parties from fragmentary grenades. Number 30. Locker loop. On the back of many men's dress shirts, right between the shoulder blades, a small fabric loop is sewn. Today we do not pay attention to it, assuming that this is a tribute to strange tailoring fashion or an element of casual style. The truth refers us to the student campuses of the 60s of the last century. Students of prestigious universities often changed clothes in cramped sports locker rooms where there were no coat hangers or free space. So that expensive shirts would not wrinkle lying on benches, clothing engineers came came up with this brilliant bug fix. The loop allowed hanging the shirt on an ordinary metal hook in the locker, keeping its perfect look. This is a classic example of how a temporary workaround to a problem with inventory in a limited space of a location eventually turned into a meaningless but mandatory texture by default. Number 31. Anti-piracy protection. Pick up any coin and run your fingernail along its edge. You will feel small notches, the edge reading. It seems to us that this is done for the convenience of blind people, or simply for the beauty of design. However, the history of this ribbed edge is saturated with crime and financial fraud. In ancient times, when coins were minted from real gold and silver, the edges were absolutely smooth. Fraudsters neatly cut or filed off thin layers of precious metal from dozens of coins in a circle, melted the shavings into new ingots, and put the spoiled money back into circulation. To stop this economic hack, the great scientist Isaac Newton proposed applying complex patterns to the edges. If the notches are damaged or missing, the coin is compromised. This is the first physical anti-piracy protection in history, a built-in DRM module of currency that unmistakably signaled an attempt to hack the financial code. Number 32. Gravitational press. We are used to thinking that our height is a static, unchanging parameter written in passport data and not subject to revision without surgical intervention. However, biometric sensors are ready to shatter this illusion. If you measure your height early in the morning, immediately after waking up, and then repeat the procedure late in the evening, you will be surprised to find that by the end of the day, you have become shorter by 1 or 2 centimeters. The ruthless gravitational press of the planet is to blame for everything. During the entire time of your wakefulness, gravity slowly but surely flattens the soft cartilaginous discs in your spine. Your character literally shrinks under the weight of the Earth's physical engine. And only at night, when you switch to horizontal sleep mode, the cartilage absorbs liquid and straightens out, returning the model to its original proportions. We undergo the procedure of archiving and unzipping our own skeleton every day. Number 33. Inverted optics. The crown of the absurdity of our design is the main tool for perceiving reality, vision. We are sure that we look at the world straight. However, the laws of light refraction are inexorable. The lens of our eye works like a classic convex lens, projecting the entire image onto the back wall of the retina upside down. In the hardware sense, we all see the sky under our feet and the earth above our heads. If we directly output the signal from optical sensors, life would be unbearable. Fortunately, the developers wrote a powerful software crutch in the occipital lobe of the brain, which in real time, without delays in ping, flips the source picture back 180 degrees. We are all born with an inverted camera by default, and our consciousness spends giant computing resources simply so that we can normally pour tea into a mug and not go crazy. At this stage, our tour of the Museum of System Errors of the Universe has come to an end. The archive doors are slowly closing. We have seen for ourselves that behind the facade of strict science and familiar everyday life lie striking imperfections, engineering compromises, and outright software chaos that by some miracle keeps this world from disintegrating. To study these bugs means to understand the true rules of the game into which we were thrown without instructions. But reality is too big to fit all its typos into one review. Therefore, now it is your turn to take a magnifying glass and inspect the matrix. Go down to the comments and write your fact number 34. Tell us about that bug in nature, technology, or history that blows your mind personally. Share your finds, like this video if your internal processor overheated a little from realization. And do not forget, even if the world around you is just bad code, there is always something to laugh at in it. See you in the next system update.